It's Thursday, January 8th, 2026. Minnesota can't stay out of the spotlight. Flipping a pyramid upside down really does make it all better. And what really is next for Venezuela? Next on the AM Update. That is the moment chaos ensued in Minneapolis as a large-scale immigration and customs enforcement operation in that city turned violent and deadly as a woman driving in an SUV apparently attempted to block immigration and customs enforcement vehicles in the middle of the street. An agent got out of his truck to go make sure that she was okay and to secure the scene and to potentially arrest her. When she instead didn't comply with orders, she sped off, hit an immigration and customs enforcement officer. That officer returned defensive fire and struck and killed the woman. She has been identified as Renee Nicole Good. She was 37 years old, a mother, and she is dead now. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem responded to the incident almost right away yesterday morning.
You asked about a shooting that we just had in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It was an act of domestic terrorism. What happened was our ICE officers were out in an enforcement action. They got stuck in the snow because of the adverse weather that is in Minneapolis. They were attempting to push out their vehicle, and a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle. An officer of ours acted quickly and defensively shot to protect himself and the people around him. And my understanding is that she was hit and is deceased. We're continuing to gather more information. But
DHS Secretary Kristi Noem recapping what happened with the immigration and customs enforcement officials and agents on the ground who were a part of that deadly scene. Renee Good, 37-year-old, deceased as she tried to attack immigration and customs enforcement officers, and that is what happened. The video, multiple video angles now come out, and it shows clearly she accelerated her car right into an immigration and customs enforcement officer. One witness at the scene discussed the incident on camera.
They clearly wanted her out of there because she was the main car leading the protest, is my understanding. I talked to another guy who was driving behind her, but she was very successful in blocking traffic. She was doing what she was set out to do, and so they wanted to get her the hell out of there. Yeah. So
it looked like she was impeding ICE vehicles.
Definitely, yeah. Okay. That was her goal.
That was an eyewitness report, courtesy of independent reporter Ben Hovland. So that is pretty cut and dried what happened there. Naturally, though, Minneapolis does what Minneapolis does best. That was the scene of a protest trying to gum up the works of immigration and customs enforcement, probably a rent-a-protest type of thing where this entire episode even began. That escalated into the afternoon to some degree in Minneapolis. That prompted Mayor Jacob Pry to tell his onlooking throng of press conference attendees yesterday afternoon addressing the situation that immigration and customs enforcement can get the bleep out of Minneapolis. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz hoping against hope that this newest story out of Minnesota will be enough to distract and dissuade from his utter failing and abject failing in terms of the fraud scandal. Here he is threatening war on the federal government.
I don't know what to tell you, and I don't quite know how to respond to the question other than my primary responsibility as governor is the protection of the people of Minnesota. And you can be assured, whether it's the State Patrol or whether it's the National Guard, their deployment is there to protect Minnesotans from whatever it is. If it's an act of nature, if it's a global pandemic, or in this case, if it is a rogue federal agent. I don't know at this time, and I want to be very careful.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz coming right up to the edge of sedition there, saying he might activate the National Guard against the federal government. He said, and basically, or at least insinuated in no uncertain terms.
Well, I said this yesterday. We've never been at war with our federal government.
There it is. Somebody better arrest Tim Walz before it is too late. President Trump, addressed the situation on Truth Social, saying, quote, "I have just viewed the clip of the event which took place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's a horrible thing to watch. The woman screaming was obviously a professional agitator." That would be one of the numerous women screaming on the videos of the event. And the woman driving the car was very disorderly, obstructing and resisting, who then violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer who seems to have shot her in self-defense based on the attached clip. That was the clip that we just heard a little bit ago. It's hard to believe that he is alive, but is now recovering in the hospital. The situation is being studied in its entirety, but the reason these incidents are happening is because the radical left is threatening, assaulting, and targeting our law enforcement officers and ICE agents on a daily basis. I just want to say one more thing about this story, this ICE-involved shooting in Minneapolis. Now is not the time for the professional bedwetters who might look at a video like that and say, "Oh man, that's really tough. Ah, boy, the ICE agent was definitely in the wrong there." Nope. All of the agitators getting in the way of those Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents carrying out their constitutionally assigned duty, those are the ones who are in the wrong. The woman agitating, getting in the way, obstructing, she was in the wrong. And it's tragic that she leaves behind children. It is. It's tragic that a life was needlessly lost, but she was in the wrong. And she can't do that and not expect no consequences. It's unfortunate that the consequence this time was her life. We go now to other news developed yesterday. American forces seized a sanctioned oil tanker flying a Russian flag following a weeks-long pursuit of the vessel after it attempted to evade the blockade of Venezuela. The U.S. European Command confirmed on social media Wednesday morning, quote, "The vessel was seized in the North Atlantic pursuant to a warrant issued by the U.S. federal court after being tracked by the U.S. Coast Guard. The Marinera, formerly known as the Bella 1, attempted to evade the U.S. blockade of sanctioned oil tankers near Venezuela while flying a false flag. During its attempted escape, the ship began flying the Russian flag and was soon under escort from Russian warships. That didn't stop the United States from apprehending that vessel and taking it under its arm. A new poll from Altica shows the vast majority of Latin America overwhelmingly supports the U.S. action to arrest Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro. Costa Rica leads the way. 87% of Costa Ricans agree with the operation. Chile, 78%. Next door, Colombia, a neighbor of Venezuela, 77% agree with the action. Mexico has the highest number of disagreeers with the action at 42%. Still, that is a minority. President Trump, again on Truth Social yesterday, posted, quote, "I have just been informed that Venezuela is going to be purchasing only American-made products with the money they receive from our new oil deal." That was the deal that he announced the other day, 30 to 50 million barrels of oil that the United States is getting from Venezuela, sold at market prices to go back to Venezuela. These purchases, Trump continues, will include, among other things, American agricultural products and American-made medicines, medical devices, and equipment to improve Venezuela's electric grid and energy facilities. Trump says, in other words, Venezuela is committing to doing business with the United States of America as their principal partner. What is going on in Venezuela? Well, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who is now the nine-job man, including apparently potentate of Venezuela, he says there's a 3-point plan going on when it comes to Venezuela, and we'll talk about that coming up in a little while. President Trump also made this announcement yesterday. Quote, "For a very long time, buying and owning a home was considered the pinnacle of the American dream. It was the reward for working hard and doing the right thing. But now, because of the record high inflation caused by Joe Biden and the Democrats in Congress, that American dream is increasingly out of reach for far too many people, especially younger Americans. It's for that reason and much more that I'm immediately taking steps to ban large institutional investors from buying more single-family homes, and I will be calling on Congress to codify it. People live in homes, not corporations. I will discuss this topic, including further housing, affordability proposals, and more at my speech at Davos. That would be the World Economic Forum in 2 weeks. I just want to tell you, not this action alone. I know there's a certain number of you who would like to extrapolate one instance and say that I think that this one action alone is going to be some sort of panacea. No, that's not what I'm saying. But this type of thing, what Trump is articulating there, is not only workable, not only helpful, it's also populist. And it's these types of things, not this alone, these types of things that we might have a Hail Mary chance of stopping the rise of socialism amongst the younger generations, like what we've seen in New York City with Zoran Mamdani. This type of thing, the populist messaging against institutional investors coming in and snapping up all of these single-family homes, I think that's a winning message, and it's also morally right, and I think actually helpful too. When we come back, flipping the pyramid upside down is very much helpful. Talk about that and more next. You'll recall the old food pyramid. I'm old enough to remember when that was still gospel truth. You were supposed to undergird your entire diet with grains and bread, and at the very top or near the top were red meats and other things of that nature. Well, that is outdated, and it's been outdated for a long time, and it makes you go, when you see the new food pyramid, because we've known for quite some time that having a diet that is just completely 100% enriched grains, that's what we're talking about in the United States in the year 2025 and in the year 2015 and in the year 2005. We're not talking about pure bread, pure B-R-E-A-D, pure bread, like actual bread. We're talking about enriched, bleached grains by and large. We're talking about processed grains by and large. But that was what we were told for decades. That should undergird Americans' entire diet, are these processed grains. We've known for a while that that is not exactly helpful. We've also known for a while that the food pyramids, the old food pyramids, emphasis or de-emphasis on fats, that's been kind of gone by the by as well. Well, RFK Jr., HHS Secretary, along with the rest of his agency, really, has a new food pyramid, and they've literally just inverted it. What used to be the recommended undergirding of Americans' diet, whole grains, that is now at the bottom of the inverted pyramid, meaning it is the least amount of food that you should be eating, at least recommended. At the very top, the widest portion of the pyramid now, protein, dairy, healthy fats, fruits and vegetables. Yep. I like it. I dig it. It's simple. And it's true. So good for RFK Jr., HHS Secretary, who made this announcement at the White House yesterday.
This must change. A new framework centers on protein and healthy fats, vegetables, fruits, and whole grains. And you can see the food pyramid here. It's upside down, a lot of you will say. But it was actually upside down before, and we just righted it. For the first time, the dietary guidelines directly address ultra-processed foods and set firm sugar limits in federal procurement, driving a significant reduction in added sugar in school meals. I want to thank President Trump for his leadership and the partners committed to ensuring that federal food dollars support real food and better health. Thank you.
There's RFK Jr. at the White House yesterday, HHS Secretary. Good. Out with the processed foods, out with the sugars, in with the healthy fats, in with the protein, and in with the fiber. I love it. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who is now apparently the potentate of Venezuela, says the United States has a 3-part plan for the future of Venezuela.
As we move forward, we'll describe our process, which is a 3-fold process in Venezuela. I've described it to them now. Step 1 is the stabilization of the country. We don't want it descending into chaos. Part of that stabilization, and the reason why we understand and believe that we have the strongest leverage possible, is our quarantine. As you've seen today, 2 more ships were seized. We are in the midst right now, and in fact about to execute on a deal to take all the oil. They have oil that is stuck in Venezuela. They can't move it because of our quarantine and because it's sanctioned. We are going to take between 30 and 50 million barrels of oil. We're going to sell it in the marketplace at market rates, not at the discounts Venezuela was getting. That money will then be handled in such a way that we will control how it is dispersed in a way that benefits the Venezuelan people, not corruption, not the regime. So we have a lot of leverage to move on the stabilization front. The second phase will be a phase that we call recovery, and that is ensuring that American, Western, and other companies have access to the Venezuelan market in a way that's fair. Also, at the same time, begin to create the process of reconciliation nationally within Venezuela so that the opposition forces can be amnestied and released and from prisons or brought back to the country and begin to rebuild civil society. And then the third phase, of course, will be one of transition. Some of this will overlap. I've described this to them in great detail. We'll have more detail in the days to follow.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the three-phase process for the future of Venezuela. It's very much a 10,000-foot view, but there is a thought process here. They're not just flying by the seat of their pants. Stabilization, that's step 1. Recovery, step 2. And transition, phase 3. He went into much more details on steps 1 and 2. I'd like to know more about the third step. And finally, our poll of the week. I asked you, will the United States action in Venezuela have its intended effect? Before we get to those results, though, I want to kind of give this as a preamble. I'm a millennial. One of my first big memories of life was 9/11. I grew up, I was a child, and I came of age during a time in which the United States was, we were told, at war. What we were really doing was nation building, with no end in sight, no end mission or goal in sight. Then I became a young adult during the Obama administration, and we were still embedded in the Middle East. Only this time with drones, and a lot of drone strikes, and a lot more treasure, and time, and lives lost. So my generation, maybe in particular, maybe not, have a reflexive disdain, we'll put it that way, for foreign military operations of almost any kind. For example, when the United States was on the table, perhaps, to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities, I kind of balked at that idea. It wasn't going to be a deal breaker. I just didn't like it, just because of that reflexive kicked dog syndrome. And again, I'm somebody, I've got military in my family. I've never served in the military. I just hate seeing lives lost, fortunes lost. For what? Because when we were trying to nation build in the Middle East, it wasn't to avenge Americans. It wasn't to build America's interests. It was very much a war of globalist dogma versus jihad. And nobody wins in that. Nobody wins in that. Globalist dogma was George W. Bush's really doctrine when it came to foreign policy. That's why we had to be nice to Muslims while we were bombing some of their home countries. That's why. So that's why part of the reason why I had this reflexive disdain for almost any sort of military operation that there's not some direct benefit that I can see anyway to America's interests. Because one action here might result in another there and another there and another there. Just look at America's involvement in a place like, Somalia. Look that up. Mission creep. Always mission creep. We're not capable of doing anything in the country's best interests. Well, as I stated on Monday, there have been 2 instances in the last 6 months where I'm starting to believe maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's possible for our armed forces, our brave men and women in the military. Maybe it's possible to have leadership that really does just have missions in place for our military, and our military is more than capable, as we've seen, of carrying out some of these daring and, dare I say, superheroic levels of execution. Our goal is to bomb the Fordo nuclear facility and other nuclear infrastructure around Iran. We bombed the Fordo nuclear facility and other nuclear infrastructure around Iran. And World War III broke it. No. And then they attacked a bunch of women. No. And then, no. That's what we did, and it's done. We accomplished it. Mission accomplished. Okay, that's what we wanted to do. We went in, we did it. It was amazing. And nothing else happened. And now, actually, without a American boot on the ground or bullets fired, it looks like we might be closer to Iran's regime, that evil regime. We might be closer to that falling than maybe we ever have been in my lifetime, and I'm about to be 33 years old. Now, much closer to home, I was far more in favor of what we did in Venezuela. That's our hemisphere. And it's being colonized by some of the worst actors on the planet, Venezuela. Being colonized by China, being colonized by Russia, being colonized by Iran, Hezbollah. We had a mission. Go in, cut off the head, do a decapitation mission, captured Maduro and his wife, who's also indicted, brought him back, no casualty, well, not serious casualties, no killings, no loss of equipment. We did it, got it done. Now there's a 3-point plan in place. See, I'm starting to believe, actually, that America can actually have America's interests advanced through military action. And watch what happens in Venezuela. Watch what happens in Iran. We might just see that advancing America's interests, a byproduct of that, not the singular product, not the prime product of that, a byproduct might be that some really, really evil men might lose their positions of power. And innocent people might have a chance to flourish. That's just the byproduct, maybe, of acting in the United States' best interest, using our military. Not in globalist dogma interest, but the United States interests. So that's a long, lengthy preamble. I wanted to flesh that out a little bit more as we come towards the end of this week, as we get to our poll of the week. Will the United States action in Venezuela have its intended effect? Number one result, yes, it will. Stability for Venezuela and oil. 38.9%, 39% of you say yes, it'll have its intended effect. In second place, yes, it'll ensure Western hegemony for the United States. 28.5% say that's how this is going. So already a clear majority, over 60% already, say yes, this is going to turn out in its intended effect. In third place, what intended effect? Meaning you don't know what the intended effect is here. We don't have a plan. You don't know what the plan is. 28% say that, and just 5% say no. This will not have its intended effect. This is a disaster. Few responses. Alex says no idea. Mark says who knows. It's if that's the way things are moving, it would definitely be wise for the U.S. to secure trade routes, natural resources, and additional territory that would benefit America. However, it feels like 3 years from now, everything would simply be undone if and when a Democrat is elected president. Could be the case, but we can't make policy decisions now based on what ifs of domestic politics in the future. Tom says the Monroe-Donroe doctrine is meant to preserve and secure our way of life now and into the future. Not to do these things would be to endanger our sovereignty and would be dangerous for the world. That's kind of what I was articulating there, Tom. Thank you for your submissions and for participating in this week's poll of the week. Hope you have a wonderful Thursday. Back at it again tomorrow for our first Ask or Tell Me Anything of 2026. Your submissions at Real AM Update on X. Look for the pinned post. That'll do it for today. Back at it again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntyre, and this is the AM Update.